When you work with private sellers, do you prefer to work through an advisor or do you prefer to work directly with the sellers?
Well, that's a good question. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, when you work through a broker, you tend to find the deal process a little more organized. So in many cases, and especially in ones where sellers have found good representation, they've organized them, they've prepared them, they've gotten their books in order, they've um, given them the sense of what is coming. Selling a business is not, as you know very well, not an easy process. And so um, sellers that are represented are prepared for that. They are organized, and they've also dealt, and we'll, I think, based upon some of the things we've talked about covering in this session, we'll talk a little bit about the emotional aspect, but they've prepared these sellers to go through the emotion of exiting their business, letting go of for some of these people what amounts to another member of the family. And so that process it's helpful when that occurs. Now on the flip side of that, if it's a professionalized process, you may have a harder time negotiating. You can't kind of play the big bad corporate guy and push the little guy around. And not that we try and do that, but there's a little advantage to being, maybe a little more astute as to how the process might play out. Maybe, we're aware of some pitfalls or some things that we may want to, sort of have at our disposal and levers we can pull. And a, professionally run, well-represented seller, they're going to anticipate a lot of those levers, and they'll thwart some of our attempts there. But I think, so I could go either way. I think we've done most of our deals with sellers that are not represented, or what I would call underrepresented. So we've become pretty astute in terms of dealing with that, understanding what we're going to face when we talk to a seller that maybe we've prospected on our own, that are, in some cases, they weren't even ready to sell their business, but when they started talking to us, got themselves comfortable with the idea, and then we proceeded on that basis. And so in many cases, they selected an attorney or used their family attorney, and then we went ahead and did the deal. So we've been through that a number of times, and it's been a really interesting learning process. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think on both sides of the coin, there's goods and bads.